Kimi K3 arrived yesterday with an explosive claim: frontier intelligence, almost 3 trillion parameters, and an open architecture. Did it just beat OpenAI and Anthropic? The rigorous answer is more interesting than yes or no. K3 changes the economics of the frontier, but it does not win every test that matters. First, a timing warning. Moonshot announced Kimi K3 on July 16, 2026. This comparison is being produced one day later, using initial documentation and vendor-reported results. Full weights are scheduled for July 27. Today we can evaluate the proposition and the published evidence, not yet a complete community reproduction. K3 is a mixture of experts model with 2.8 trillion total parameters. It does not activate all of them for every token. Moonshot describes 16 active experts out of 896. The goal is extreme capacity without paying the full compute cost of a dense model at every step. Its context window reaches 1 million tokens, with native visual understanding, in principle, that supports repositories, documents, images, and long engineering sessions. But advertised context is not perfect memory. The real question is how reliably the model retrieves, connects, and applies evidence buried hundreds of thousands of tokens away. The architecture combines Kimi delta attention with attention residuals. Moonshot says this improves information flow across both sequence length and model depth. That is an important technical bet, not simply scaling parameters, but changing how signals travel. The complete technical report, however, was not yet available when this analysis was recorded. Now the tempting headline: is it better than GPT-5.6 Sol and Claude Fable 5? There is no single scoreboard called intelligence, coding, research, tool use, vision, policy compliance, document work, and long autonomous projects are different problems. A universal winner is usually an artifact of which tests were selected. On DeepSware, Moonshot's table places K3 at 67.5, Claude Fable 5 at 70, and GPT-5.6 Sol higher still. K3 does not win there, but Moonshot reports 81.2 for K3 on Frontier SWE and 42 on SWE Marathon, ahead of the compared rivals. Is that a contradiction? No. Different harnesses, tool limits, budgets, and task distributions can reverse a ranking. A model never works alone. It receives a file system, an agent loop, compilers, browsers, instructions, and time. Comparing models without comparing harnesses is like judging engines installed in different vehicles after one lap. OpenAI reports 72.7 on DeepSware, 88.8 on Terminal Bench 2.1, and 94.6 on GPQA Diamond for GPT-5.6 Sol. It also reports a substantial science advantage on Genebench Pro. These are vendor figures, informative, but not neutral. Attribution matters. Anthropic positions Claude Fable 5 as its strongest generally available model, especially for long-horizon engineering, knowledge work, and vision. Companies cited by Anthropic describe complex migrations and analysis with less intervention. There is also an operational difference. Some requests can be routed to Opus 4.8 when safety classifiers trigger. Kimi's own launch post contains the sentence that breaks the clickbait. Overall performance still trails the strongest proprietary models, Claude Fable 5 and GPT-5.6 Sol. Moonshot is not claiming universal victory. Its more strategic claim is that K3 brings frontier-level capability closer to the open ecosystem at a much lower price. Moonshot lists API pricing at $3 per million uncached input tokens and $15 per million output tokens, with cached input at 30 cents. GPT 5.6 Sol is listed at 5 and 30. Claude Fable 5 is 10 and 50. K3 is aggressive per token, but price per token is not cost per task. A cheap model that needs 3 retries produces excessive reasoning tokens. or demands constant supervision can cost more. An expensive model that completes the job once may be cheaper. Professional cost includes latency, cache behavior, tools, success rate, human review, and the price of failure. Tokens are only the accounting unit. The word open also needs surgery. K3 promises full weights, but a 2.8 trillion parameter model does not become accessible merely because a download exists. Running it requires extraordinary infrastructure. Open weights are not the same as transparent training data, complete training code, unrestricted licensing, or consumer-scale inference. Still, weights matter. They enable auditing, adaptation, sovereign deployment, and experimentation outside a closed API. For universities, governments, and companies with data residency requirements, that option may be worth more than a few benchmark points. The question shifts from who answers a prompt best to who controls the complete system. For an individual developer, the choice becomes practical. Choose K3 when cost, huge context, open experimentation, and coding agent compatibility dominate. Choose GPT-5.6 Sol when you need broad performance, science, integrated tools, and the OpenAI ecosystem. Choose Claude Fable 5 when long engineering work, careful reading, and sustained autonomy dominate. Education changes the criterion again. A useful model is not merely the one with the most impressive answer. It should support source checking, uncertainty, differentiated explanation, and privacy. K3 may expand institutional access, but no architecture replaces assessment policy. Fluency is not understanding, and a benchmark score is not learning. An educational institution must also ask where its data goes. A closed API may offer strong enterprise controls, while deployable weights can support technical sovereignty when skilled infrastructure exists. Neither option is private by definition. Privacy depends on contracts, logs, retention, configuration, security, and the human practices surrounding the model. Multimodality is not merely accepting an image. What matters is whether a system can read dense charts, locate visual evidence, preserve references across pages, and recognize when an image is insufficient. K3 launches with vision. OpenAI and Anthropic offer mature visual systems. A fair test uses your diagrams, documents, and recurring errors. For agentic work, watch what happens after the first failure. Does the system repeat the same action, invent success, or inspect state and change strategy? Useful autonomy is not taking more steps. It is closing verification loops. A model that repairs its own process can outperform a benchmark leader in production. There is also an energy and infrastructure cost. A mixture of experts model activates only part of its parameter count, but serving a system at this scale still requires specialized memory, networking, and data centers. Openness may distribute control. It does not erase compute concentration. This frontier is political as well as technical. Finally, separate model from product. ChatGPT, Claude, and Kimi include interfaces, memory, search, files, agents, safeguards, and support. A comparison of weights cannot predict the full experience. Sometimes a theoretically weaker model wins because its product reduces friction, connects better tools, and exposes errors before they reach the user. Here is a fair 4-layer test. First, select 5 real tasks from your work, not viral puzzles. Second, provide the same context, tools, and budget. Third, blind review accuracy, usefulness, and corrections required. Fourth, calculate total cost including human time. After 20 runs, your local answer will be more valuable than 100 rankings. Measure stability as well. A model that produces one spectacular result and fails 4 times may be worse than a less dramatic but consistent system. Track success rate, variation between runs, recovery after tool errors, and the ability to stop when uncertain. Reliability turns apparent intelligence into usable infrastructure. My provisional verdict is this: Kimi K3 is not absolutely better than OpenAI and Anthropic. It may be the better purchase, the better open base, or the better tool for specific coding and long context workloads. That distinction is the whole story. The frontier no longer has one leader, it has a shifting map of advantages. The larger hypothesis goes further. If an open 3 trillion class model approaches closed systems at a fraction of the price, economic value moves away from the isolated model and toward agents, proprietary data, evaluation, and integration. Baseline intelligence becomes cheaper. The judgment required to direct it becomes more scarce. So the right question is not who won this week. It is which combination of model, tools, and governance produces verifiable results for you. K3 matters because it forces OpenAI and Anthropic to compete on cost and openness. Crowning it before independent reproduction would confuse a launch with evidence. Within weeks we should have weights, independent tests, and broader operational evidence. Until then, hold two ideas together. Kimi K3 may be one of the year's most important open model releases, and current evidence does not make it a universal king. The best AI is the one that completes your task with quality, control, and sustainable cost. Turn this comparison into a decision. Take one task that genuinely consumes your time and run it through all three systems under equivalent conditions. Publish the failures, not only the victories. That is where AI literacy begins. Less brand loyalty, more experimental design, and one uncomfortable question no benchmark can answer for you.